Hi, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. It's behind the scenes laughing. I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder of the Bobby White Foundation, along with...
Good afternoon. I'm Bonnie Snyder, your co-host. Oh, the things that go on before we go live. Just saying.
Yeah, just saying. Everybody's had an interesting weekend, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first we want to thank, of course, our producer and the guys here at the studio, John and Rob and Dylan, getting us all put together. So that even though we laugh a lot, we're together. We are together. So to do the show and our, the support from WeBeam TV and Hilton Garden Inn and all of you guys out there that support us. Got a lot of things coming up that we're going to talk about, some immediately and planning for the fall, which time seems to go like so fast that it's kind of hard to plan everything.
I know, it's hard to believe that. April. Like, this is the
almost
last week
over.
of April.
I know.
Like, this is it. Like, what? April is over? We're going into summer, and like you said before, you know what, fall will be here.
I know. It's crazy. So I mentioned the weekend, and I'm going to start with you first. Because you showed up with a big boot and crutches.
Yeah, interestingly, folks, it's kind of like, there's this thing on my foot, and my crutches are over there, and for the life of me, I don't know what I did. I really have no clue what I did. I was at an event last Thursday, and we, every year around this time of the year, we're getting into prom season and whatnot. And so there's this really huge event that, between the Sheriff's Department and Tampa General, Fire Rescue, and one of our local funeral homes, Dobies, puts together this presentation. It's called Prom Promise. And what it is, it's a skit. I'm going to call it a skit because that tends to minimize the impact of it. But it's a presentation in which, you hear, some, kids coming back from prom. And, the guy and the girl are in the car and they're kind of fussing, put your seatbelt on. Oh, it's going to wrinkle my dress. You told me you weren't going to drink. I'm okay. And then you hear a crash. Of course, they pull this banner down. Anyway, long story short, I'm out, doing this event. And, it was all over. I get in my car, put all my stuff in, I go home, and I was eating lunch. And, I was like, finished lunch, and I went to stand up, and as I stood up, at this, like, really bad shooting pain up my leg, like my heel. All I did was, what the devil did I do? Because I'm like, I didn't remember, it's like, I didn't twist my foot when I was, at the event. We're on a football field. Don't remember stepping off any curb, the wrong way. But it's really huge pain. So, I called, I was going to go to the ER, but then, being a vet, I called the VA, and I was like, oh, just come in as I walk in. So I get there, it's like 3:35. Well, X-ray closes at 3:30.
Oh, jeez.
And I don't think, the person who answers the phone, I don't think she was processing. It's after 3:30. There's no... I'm not angry with her or anything like that, but I went in and the nurse, he was really, really sweet. He was like, X-ray closed at 3:30. And I was like, they told me to come in. And he was like, that was one of the clerks, they may not be aware. And I was like, no big deal. I had a doctor's appointment the next day anyway. So anyway, I am in a boot and crutches until podiatry figures out what's going on. I got to go see podiatry on Friday, and then Sunday I do an MRI. X-ray says it's tendinitis. Doesn't feel like tendinitis to me, but what do I know? I'm mental health. I'm not a doctor.
So you get to limit your activities a bit. No?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, only that's limited by, I have to, wear crutches and whatnot. But, my grandsons that live with me, they're scoring some brownie points. They've been grounded for like the last month now, so I think they're trying to score some. When are we going to get off grounded? So maybe if we like baby her, and they're like I said, they're 12, but their one is just a little bit taller than I am. Yeah, well, you've met him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is like probably like right at my height. So they're like, here, let me give you my shoulder, Nana. I'll help you in the house. Or, Nana, do you want us to bring you some food? Yeah, I know what you guys are doing. They're trying to get off the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it. So, which is funny because, speaking of events, we have an event coming up this weekend, the DEA Take Back.
Oh, that's coming up already?
It's this Saturday. For those of y'all in the Florida area, every year, what I find about these takebacks is where we partner with it's the Pasco Sheriff's Department and the DEA, and the purpose of it is to collect expired, unwanted, or unused medication, in a manner that it disposes of it in a nice, safe manner. Keeps people from flushing it down the toilet or just throwing it in the trash and ends up in landfills. But more importantly, when you think about the premise of what this show was focused on, suicide and suicide loss, as we're, collecting these unwanted medications, the other thing is, where are people getting, either medications, to get high on? I think about them teaching my children about farm parties, and they're like, farm parties. And I was like, I don't mean old McDonald E-I-E-I-O kind of farm party. I mean PHARM, or they also call them Skittles parties. But I'm also looking at people who are at risk. Let's get the extra medications out of the cabinets, into the hands of the DEA, who they're collected, and then the boxes are taken to wherever they're taken to be burned, so that they're disposed of safely. So that's this Saturday here, 2 locations, one at the Shops at Wiregrass in Wesley Chapel, and then the other location is the Pasco Sheriff Operations Office on our building on Little Road.
That's just the building just south of the county building.
Don't ask me north, east, south, or west. I don't do that. So it's like it's like the courthouse is right here.
Right.
If you're
looking at the courthouse from Little Road, it's on the right.
Correct.
Right.
And so what's nice about these 2 locations is people you don't have to get out of your car. You just drive up, hand whatever medication you're trying to deputy drops it in a bag. We give you some information, places that you can drop, when these events aren't happening. Because we do them twice a year, once in April and once in October. But some people in the, in the middle of those 2 times, we, here's some places that you could just drop them off if you don't want to, stockpile and hold on to them. But it starts at 9. And it runs until 2. I think it's 9 to 2.
That's some pretty good long hours.
It is.
And it's really good to get rid of those extra medications. Quite often, they're used for people to take their lives, those that are at high risk. And actually with the statistics, female suicide deaths are typically, not always, but the higher rates are by drug overdose.
Yes, yeah. Males tend to get a little more extreme and use a firearm.
Right.
But statistically, women are pills.
And in some cases, and some of the things that I've read too, that because of the means that women use, a lot more often they're not as successful.
Women are not completers.
Right. They're, whereas the extreme measures that males take, either with a gun or hanging, that they have higher completion
Yeah, because
rates.
their means is more lethal, their
Right.
completion rate is
Is
usually
more higher.
higher.
Correct.
Just because.
Right. So and we don't want our teenagers to get these, or young adults. Just get it all cleaned up, take it to a safe place, and they will take care of it properly.
Oh yeah, I mean it's what I like about it. I've done these events for I'd say the last 8 years or so. What I like about them is people are as they're coming through and they're handling their medications. They're like, oh my gosh, you're so happy that you're doing this. I can't. It's like this is such a good thing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I remember this one individual had driven up in their car, and they opened their trunk, and there were like 3 huge garbage bags full of medication.
Oh my gosh!
And part of me's like,
From one
where'd all
resident?
those come? Well, it was, and I was kind of on the fence, like, gosh, like you almost want to go, la 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 la,
Right,
I don't want
right.
to hear this. But she was like, yeah, some of it was her own, but she was in like a 55 plus community, and so, a lot of course 55 plus people are older.
Right.
It was just hey, I'll go drop everything off. So
Oh, that's
people in
cool.
the community would like, here's our stuff, and then take
Right.
it.
Right.
And I'm quite sure because what do they say? If you give your prescription to somebody else, that's a felony. So it's like if she got stopped, now granted, it was all in her trunk.
Right.
So I'm quite sure if she said, look,
This is where I'm going.
I'm
Right.
going to take this to the drop
Right.
location, she would have been okay. And other people would, bring stuff by and, like, I, connecting with us, with those of us that were out there. I lost my mom, I just lost my, my spouse, a parent, a spouse,
Right.
A child, and this is their leftover medication. But yeah, it's a good cause.
And that's, well, by the time this airs, it'll be over with.
Right, because it'll air
Saturday.
This will air the evening of the event.
That event. But as she said, there are other drop locations throughout the county all year long.
Yeah. And actually, we've updated our. Thank you. For
Thanks,
the flyer.
Rob.
We have updated our flyer, and what I'll do is I'll have you posted on our pages and whatnot. That tells you places that you can drop your unwanted medication and whatnot. And in the past, we had just had here's where you can take pills, and there are things they were limited. Like some places would take pills and no liquids. Some people take liquids, and like pills were always yes, absolutely. There was the challenge for some people is where to take their sharps. So you have people who are insulin
Right.
dependent, and it's like, where do I take my needles? And unfortunately, like we couldn't take them at the take back day
Right.
because again these pills are being incinerated while needles don't burn.
Right.
Needles.
Yeah.
So
Plastic in the middle.
we're like, okay, just some of the hospitals would take them, but then it was getting to where some of the hospitals weren't taking sharps. Well, like, why would a hospital take it? I mean,
Yeah.
that didn't make any sense. So our new updated card has locations now where people can take sharps because it's that's a prevalent thing. Because again, get the needles off the street.
Oh yeah, because it hasn't happened like too recently, but several months ago, I'm walking my property line along the road, cleaning up garbage that people throw out, and from just before one of my driveways to the other driveway, I have a big circle driveway, 3 needles strewn along the side of the road. But so give me that information, and we'll post the information both on the foundation Facebook page and on the show's Facebook page, so that here in Pasco County, West Pasco, that you have that information and it'll be easy for you to get to, so that we have that information available all year long. So that's a really good thing to do. So that's really cool. I can't believe it's coming up so fast. It almost seems like we just had it, but that's where the time flies.
It is. And, I mean, along with, getting, the unwanted medication off the street, we have also developed a resource guide, and, in the interim, they're, called the Terra bags, where you can take the medication and neutralize it and throw it in the trash. It's got a little charcoal in it where you open the bag, pour your pills in, put some water in it, seal it, and then you can throw it in the trash. That bag, the agent or charcoal or whatever it is in the bag actually neutralizes the medication. Yeah, so we give those out as well in the interim. So lots of stuff.
Okay, well that's really pretty cool. All right, so we got that. I'm gonna talk a little teeny bit about what I did this past weekend. I mentioned it, I think briefly on last week's show. This past weekend was the first annual Surrey Fest, SURYA, at Sunwest Park in Hudson. It was a music, health, and wellness festival. Super windy out there. Just saying, first time I did an event that many days. Learned a lot. But we first day it was really frustrating because it was so windy and trying to get the tent all set up, and the tent went flying. Luckily, the volleyball court stopped it.
Wow!
From before it hit the people and went in the lake. So a couple guys went and grabbed the tent, and it kind of got a little bit damaged. I had to tie it to the truck so that it wouldn't fly away. It was kind of frustrating the first day, trying to figure out how to hold things down with the wind and everything. So I was standing there later in the afternoon, and I'm like, oh man, what did I get myself into? But we were actually the sponsor for the beer and wine truck. And so part of the proceeds from the sales of the beer and wine were supposed to come back to the foundation. So didn't really think, too much about what we were doing. We had our tent set up, being able to talk to people. And I'm standing there, and all of a sudden I look at the main stage. They had this ginormous stage because they had bands throughout the day in the evenings. And I'm looking up there, and and it was so windy. They had these huge banners, and at first they only had like a sandbag on each corner. It was so windy that the sandbags were coming up off the ground.
Oh, wow.
So they ended up like having to hold these banners down with like half a dozen sandbags each. But so I'm standing there, and I look up at the banner, and there's the Bobby White Foundation.
Oh, nice.
Main stage. And I was like, there we are. See, look at right under Hits 106.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, holy crap, that's really cool. We made the main stage.
Nice.
So that was really cool. And it was, like I said, it was interesting. It was a learning experience because I've only done like a day event or something that's several hours, not something that's several days. So it was a huge learning experience. We were invited to an event over in Winter Haven this coming weekend, which will be when this airs, but we're just not big enough to do that yet. So, but we are on their radar, so things to look forward to in the future for the foundation and expanding what we do in the area, Central Florida, Pasco County and beyond. So that was really cool. But yeah, I was just like, so that made the whole weekend for me, no matter how windy it was or anything that happened, was just to see the foundation name up on the banner. So that was cool. And so we're gonna really be hopefully a lot more involved with the promoters of that festival for next year, to bring it back. As the concept is really great. So we want to bring it back year after year as a Music, Health, and Wellness Festival, which is, I think, really extremely important. We don't have anything really like that around here, and so we're going to be a lot more involved for next year's event, and so as things progress, that'll be hopefully really cool next year too.
Nice.
Nice. as the event grows. So that was my experience getting sunburned and windburned and
We were a bunch. Sunburn, windburn, broke foot.
broke foot. Yeah, just. But it kind of is kicking off a lot of events coming up. Last week we had Evie on from ASAP for the
Pedal for prevention.
Pedal for I cannot get that to roll off my tongue very well, and I forget. Pedal for Prevention, which is May 7th at Starkey Park.
9 to noon.
9 to noon.
It is $20, for adults. Children 12 and under are free. If and we understand, that some people, it's like, oh, I want to, participate in this event is something that I, would like. We do have some sponsorships, to where, if you, don't let the $20 be a barrier to you participating. We had Golfside T-shirts, made up some made T-shirts for us. So, the first 100 people, will get a T-shirt. But this is our second annual one. So, we're really excited to have Swamp Mountain guided bike tours, as a sponsor for the event, and they're going to be, giving, like, I don't want to say lessons, but they're going to do a guided tour, on the bike trail.
Because there's going to be like 2 different types of bike trails. You got the easy, flat, the paved bike trail, and then they're going to do a tour through the off-road bike trails.
Yeah. I went hiking through. I love Starkey Park. It's one of our prettier parks, especially at night if you like hiking.
Or really early in the morning.
Yes.
You get to see amazing animals out there.
I liked going, and again, it has its pros and cons. Like, I would go like in the evening, at the end of the day, and just kind of walk. Now, a con to the evening is, you got the no-see-ums and the mosquitoes. Like that, was a downside. But I liked going because I enjoyed the sunset. So I, did, part of the walking trails where, part of it was on the pavement, and then I'm out in the woods. Former coworker and I went. Because I wasn't thinking, the time when she was like, hey, you want to go on a hike with me? Sure, I'll go. She's an avid hiker. And, I was in, not now, mind you, but I was in pretty decent shape, and I was like, after a while, I was like, what was I thinking? It's like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe. She's just wearing me out.
And we don't even have mountain hiking here.
I know. But coming out of that rabbit hole, it's, ASAP, over the last few years has become its own, standalone nonprofit. Where in the past, as you heard Evie said, I could, so I don't talk much about what I do offset. But we were grant funded for a lot of years, and that grant ended. And of course, the question became what to do with, what direction is ASAP going to do, go in? And so it's become its own, standalone nonprofit. And this is one of the ways that we do each year to not only raise money, for us to be able to do what we do. At the same time, promoting, alcohol, alcoholism to me, substance misuse prevention and whatnot. And, interestingly, anybody can get involved. And I think what happens when you're looking at, coalitions such as ASAP you have to be a mental health professional, you have to be somebody in recovery, you have to be a professional. And it's not. You get lay people to do it, or lay people become involved, and we have our youth, the youth coalition as well.
Yeah, the youth coalition stand. I mean,
Stand
those
Above the
kids. Yeah,
Influence.
those kids are amazing.
Oh yeah, but like I said, a lot of my kids that I had, from when I joined their team 8 years ago, several of the kids that I had are either in the military, they're in, they're second, third year of college right now. Some of them have gone off, got married, had kids, but you have these children from middle school, all through their middle school experience,
right.
all through their high school experience. And when they graduate, they don't leave. They don't leave you. Anyway, pedal and
So, Pedal for Prevention, May 7th at Starkey Park from
9 to noon,
9 to noon.
noonish.
Noon-ish.
There's also going to be a food truck out there. From what I understand, what is it called? Dang Good Sushi
Oh, yeah?
is going to be out there as a food truck. And then I think Evie talked a little bit about, we have our recovery walk coming up in, I think it's September. Yes.
Right.
And, that's another, that one's going to be at Sims Park. It's another, really huge, event where, the whole idea, much like, us saying, lost survivors do survive. Lost survivors do, carry on. The same thing, people do recover. And I think it's nice when we put a face on some of the academics. Listen, I can't talk today. Epidemics, that we have. So putting a face on, suicide prevention. Hey, here's a lost survivor. Here's a face. Putting a face on, recovery, and addiction. Recovery works. Here's a face to put on it. Taking the stigma out of these topics, and I think that is what I find is the I don't want to say the biggest challenge, but for me is the most rewarding, and I'm going to say my favorite point to drive home. Come on, guys, let's take the stigma out of things, or not make things so taboo to talk about. Or not giving people a safe place to talk about certain issues.
Well, and sharing your story, being able to share your story, what you've gone through, whether being a lost survivor or in recovery, it gives those other people that may be afraid to talk or have, like the experiences I have had, who haven't spoke for years about who they lost to suicide. It's weird and awesome at the same time that they feel almost like it's a relief, and now it's okay for them to talk about it, where they haven't spoken years about it. And it makes other people, it just makes them more comfortable, and they know that they're not the only one going through it or have gone through it, and putting another face to it makes it a little bit easier.
And that's the huge thing too, being able to put a face on, something that, otherwise we think of as, taboo. Because again, when you look at, if I use addiction, for an example, and, when I'm in meetings, or whatnot, and, people are doing introductions like, hi, my name is, whatever my name, whatever the name is, I'm a person in long-term recovery. And as you're looking at this person who's in recovery, you're like, I would have never guessed this person. Or, again, much like here, people sharing their story. There's one of our board members, one of the ASAP board members, who has shared their story a lot. And, very interesting is when you look at mugshots of when they were, being arrested, or actively using, and you compare to what they look like now. It's like, there, it's night
Right.
and day. There's another, individual, and before I, pull his name, before I shout out his name, I want to reach out to him and see if we can get him in as a guest. I love the guy; it's very phenomenal. But same thing, with him. He shared his story to our coalition meeting, and looking at, his active use mugshot pictures against where he is now. It's like, again, night and day. It's like, I would have never guessed that the person that I'm seeing over here was this person right here.
Well, and on the different spectrum, when I first started speaking out about Bobby's death, it was about a year and a half after he had taken his life. For years, was I in business in this community for 20 plus years, and everybody just knew Tammy White. She does custom framing and sells art, and her husband Bobby, he's a land surveyor, and for years, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, something so traumatic changes, and when this did happen, and when I decided to speak out publicly, a lot of it was because so many people in the community already knew me. About half the people knew how Bobby died, and the other half assumed it was, which isn't like totally not true, because he had MS for 25 years, that it was complications from MS. And I have said before, when my sister-in-law, for the first couple of years, she couldn't bring herself to say how her brother actually died. It was complications from MS. She's come around a bit more with that. Helping her, I think, is with what we do with the foundation and our fundraisers, and her being a little bit of a part of that. But it was like, if I have to put a face to it, I guess it might as well be me, because so many people already know me. You would never have expected this to happen. And same as you, being in mental health, you would never expect this to hit us.
Right.
But it does, because it doesn't discriminate. And when I started talking to groups, and even almost the very first time I spoke, people came up to me that I never knew and never would have even thought of, that either lost a family member to suicide or attempted. And they felt comfortable coming up to me and, thanking me for sharing, and it made them more comfortable to say, this is what happened to me.
Oh yeah, I mean, you think in a nutshell, with any, topic like this, people are prone to be, more comfortable or open with someone who has experienced same. I remember, I think I remember sharing this sometime before, where I used to facilitate. I still do. Not as often as I did before, but I facilitated a group for parents, and I had a young coworker working with me for a period of time, and she had taken over for me. I was going on vacation or something like that. And then, when I got back, they were like, she's really nice, she does a good job, with the groups and whatnot. However, she doesn't have kids. So it's almost like, we like her style, not any dig whatsoever on her credentials or how she went the group. It's like, she's not a parent. She doesn't understand. And I looked at her, I was like, okay, well, I appreciate what you're saying, and I get it. I took a step back and I was like, right, let's think about this. When I need advice about something, or I want to talk to someone about whatever it is, I'm going to find myself gravitating towards someone who's had a like or similar experience. So if I like, to use something, nonsensical. I've never gotten a tattoo before. Well, I'm gonna, if I'm thinking about getting a tattoo, I'm not going to talk to somebody who doesn't have tattoos. What are you going to tell me? What does it feel like? Well, I think it's this.
Right.
Versus, yeah, you have a
You can ask
tattoo? Let me tell me how that felt, or somebody who's been
Right.
through that experience. You know, I don't like being a voice for this topic.
Well, I don't think any of us do, and none of us. I mean, it's not something that you plan on.
But
doing.
at the same time, that's such a lie, because it's like, I don't mind. Maybe I should rephrase it. I don't
It's
mind.
not really, but it's not really a lie. It's
No, here's where it is. I'm gonna push back just a little bit. Just sit back and think about it. You just said that. It's just because to me it is a lie. I don't, because it's my job, and I think for me, because I wear that mental health professional hat. It's your job. It's what you're supposed to be doing, talking to people about
Right.
stuff that bothers you. So if I were to kind of revamp and say, yeah, it's a bit hypocritical. I don't mind being a voice. The part that I hate is it's my story.
That's the reason,
as
yeah.
I'm, the reality of the story as I'm telling it.
but that's what makes it more effective too.
Yes, that's true.
You
That
know?
is so true.
I mean, because this is not something that I would have ever planned at this point in my life. Bobby was supposed to get ready for retirement. That's what I was planning for. I'm supposed to be getting close to that age. Well, hey, maybe I can retire. Well, guess what? That's not going to happen. When I was going through, actually, it was not during the pandemic, during the recession. And I went back to school and got my bachelor's degree and got my master's degree for something to do. And a lot of people were like, oh, are you going to go to work for somebody? And I'm like, I've been self-employed since I was 26. I don't think so. But I never, ever imagined that knowledge and those skills would be put to use to start a nonprofit foundation, to be out in the public. Thank goodness we had to do almost public speaking weekly in our actually, he made us do it, I think, in both our bachelor's, but mostly in our master's program. Practice public speaking almost every single week. Never, ever thinking that this is what it was going to be used for. And it's not something that we would choose, but yet we do it because there's a need for it. We're motivated to help people. It's just, it is.
It's ingrained in us. It's a part. It's a part of us. And again, as we continue to carry the message forward, I love the fact that we have all of, these different events that's coming up. That people are starting. Community partners are coming out of the woodwork. Almost to host different events, and I like how the way we're addressing certain things. People are really thinking outside of the box.
Well, and it's some of us, not all organizations, but a lot of us are, and we started doing this a couple of years ago, but really as going through the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic. And it actually started before, and I can't remember if it was the ASAP meetings that we used to have over in Land O'Lakes before the pandemic, and all these different community partners getting together, wrapping around our services, learning about everybody else's services, so that when something comes up, it's like, okay, we don't deal with this, but we know who does.
Exactly.
And now, coming out of this, it's starting to happen more, and that's one thing that we're trying to do with the foundation too, is connect with other organizations that like ASAP, like NAMI, Ian's Way, who they're in the same realm as us, but their focus is teen suicide prevention. So trying to get all these organizations to come together and work together, because one organization can't take care of it all. we all can do our part, but we can all do our part together. So even like when it's not until September, but we had our Art for Hope committee meeting last night, and that's what we're going to do. Also, something new this year for our Art for Hope, our first event. We're going to have 2 events in the fall, but the main one, which is Suicide Prevention Week, is have some of these other community partners at the event, so that people also know that, hey, this is who we're working with, and this is what they do, so that the community is introduced to them a little bit more also. And we're not just working together within each other, but getting the community to know a little bit more.
So I love coalition work. I absolutely, I think when I started, doing, what I'm doing, no concept, that it was going to be this, and like the more I got into it, it's like, what am I, not so much what am I doing in terms of, I can't believe I'm doing this, but it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, I did not, job description does, sometimes job description doesn't match the job. And sometimes when that happens is you are so glad the job description does not really match the job, or the job title does not really match, what you're doing. So people say, well, what is your job? And I'm a case manager. I'm like, case manager? No, I don't do case management. So I usually tell them, I was like, I do coalition, so I, coalition work, guys, just coalition work. What do you do? Oh, be careful what you ask.
Yeah.
Be careful what you ask for, because I'm going to. But anyway.
Well, that's good. There's, like I said, there's a lot going on. There's a lot more going on. I have a Zoom meeting in the morning that I'll have some information for the next show. Something out, a new thing that's going on in the community, so I'll be able to bring that hopefully and see how that's going to play out with everything else that we're doing. I'm kind of excited about that too. So our chapter is really kind of short.
It is. I like that. It is very
because I was like, oh yeah, let's
we get off on these tangents and we forget.
I know.
Sometimes it's like, okay, I think we need to all right, I'm going to cut myself off here so I can get to the book.
Okay, so the book that we're still here with, we're dragging this one out, but this is a really good book, How to Carry What Can't Be Fixed. It's a really great grief journal. You can scan that QR code. You can get it off Amazon.com. Smile.amazon.com, and part of the proceeds do come back to the foundation, but you can get it, and you can still go along with us because we're not maybe quite halfway through the book,
but that's okay.
Yeah,
we have creative freedom.
That we do.
A lot of creative freedom. So.
That we do, and we had. April is a really hard month for me, and we did take a week off. It's been a weird, interesting month. I can't wait. This weekend it'll be over. But the grief and going through it, and the grief cycles, and when I read this first paragraph, I was like, oh my gosh, this is.
I love that first paragraph.
I know. So it's. Grieving people can't win. If you show your feelings, people say you're too emotional and need to move on. If you don't show your feelings, you're in denial and need to face the truth. It's really no wonder that most people keep their grief to themselves. I don't.
Keep your grief to yourself?
Yeah. Well, kind of. Yeah, it's kind of like half and half. It depends on how bad it gets.
I think for me it depends on who I'm with, per se. But, this paragraph really, hit home for me because I felt myself with this looking at how does grief work for me. And also at the same time, how I, what's the word do I want to use? Processed how other people were grieving. Because I remember in the past, and this was, beforehand, our team had lost an individual who, was a really good friend to, the team, and, did some work with ASAP and whatnot. And, this person, likewise, passed away from an overdose. And I want to say for the next, I don't know how many, like months and then years afterwards, kept hearing, oh, this person was gone and how it was affecting them. Oh, just, not so much. I don't, I don't want to sound like catty or, but like, oh my God, I'm going to get through this. I'm crying all the time and I have to go through this stuff and everything. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, shut up. Like, get over it. Like, just get over it. Like, come on. I get it. You're sad, but get over it. Fast forward. And, there are times where I say to myself, come on. Like now it's, 3 years into it. Get over it. It's okay. And I find myself like, wow, like really evaluating how different people, were grieving. Again, like, for the umpteenth time, as Kira, all that stuff I said to you, stupidest stuff I ever said to you, like, forget that I ever said that to you because it was dumb. It is, this, grief, like anything else, finding that nice little balance, between how much is enough, how much is, too much, how much is not enough. But at the same time, it is not about how everybody else views you. It is, what's good enough, for you. Like, I still have not been able to, if I'm talking about somebody else, I can say the D word. I can say, died or death, passed away, and whatnot. When I'm talking about anybody else, I cannot say that word. When I'm talking about, Pat or Aiden, just cannot go out. Well, no, Aiden, I think I've used it. Can I get that word out of my mouth for Pat?
It's different for everybody, like in our family, between myself and my sisters and my brother-in-law, the process is so much different with everybody. And like for me this year, and even sometimes I wonder, how did I get from 6 years ago to today? And this year happened to fall on the day, which kind of leading up to it, I didn't know if that was going to be like how it was going to be. It ended up being, to me, way worse than the last few years. And I think part of it too is, as you're going through it, and then as a year goes by or 2 years go by, you're in a fog and you're learning how to do your life, or you're trying to do something, you don't know. Everybody else that's, even though it could be close family members, that are still going through it also, but differently, the understanding is so much different. And then it gets to, okay, here I am 6 years. Oh, come on, it's been 6 years. But I remember when my first husband was killed, when Michael was killed, it took a good 5 years. And Bobby and I were together during that time. I put him through hell with all the stuff that I had to deal with at that time. But so then it's like, okay, now I'm at 6 years, and this is the day. Oh, and I tell you what, it was a total disaster for me. But it was almost like, and I have been kind of like as figuring out sort of like a metaphor as what's been going on with me and my grief and dealing with it, per se, like the last 6 months. It's like you're coming through a fog, and in the middle of that fog is this huge brick wall. and you want to get through that, and you're trying to get through it, and it's there, and you can't get through it. And when I went through what I went through a couple of weeks ago, and I was down and out completely for a week. Of course, I did have the flu, so it wasn't just total my head. At least that's what me and some of my family is telling me. I did have the flu, so it wasn't just totally me. That brick wall started to crumble. And it's crumbling. And I can pull some of those pieces back. There's still some fog on the other side. And not to say I'm not going to have days where that heaviness and that hurt is going to be that heavy again. Hopefully not. But that's kind of what that is coming through, going through that grief process right now.
And what I liked about, what she was talking about here is the difference between like when the pain is new and fresh and what that feels like, and it is, like all, it's, exhausting. It is, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, muddle through this. I looking at the topic or the heading title, I'll get to the word I want, of this chapter, the gifts and perils of distraction. And I like this word, distraction, because it, I find it helpful when getting through, just about any trauma, there is. I was talking to, someone else, who recently suffered a loss. Wasn't a suicide loss, mind you. But I've been like, how you doing? And I just want to let you know you're in my thoughts and whatnot. And they were like, doing a lot, we're going to Orlando a lot. Went to Disney a lot, just, like keeping busy. And I thought, you know what? The idea of keeping busy really, I looked at it as, okay, I want to keep my mind busy. I wasn't really thinking about it in terms of it being a distraction. And, so of course I sat back and I looked at it, I remodeled my whole entire house, virtually every room. Would I have done that, regardless? Yeah, I probably would. Or I talked about it. And it wasn't until, after, Pat, this tile that I had for my Florida room had been sitting in a corner for 3 years. It's like I bought that. I like the tile. Let me buy it. Why it's here, because I'll go in, like, I'm probably going to do this and it's going to be gone. But anyway, it's like, you know what? Let me lay this tile. Never laid tile before. But I did this floor. Did you send pictures of it? That was a distraction. She has a nice, list of things that you can do, listen to podcasts, drawing, taking a nap, baking for a friend.
Like work in the garden.
Walk in the
mine.
woods. I'm not a gamer, but I have apps on my phone that I just, I'm connected to. My daughter looked at me, there's one app, and she was like, what level are you on? And I know she was thinking, I was like, well, you play this game too, what level are you on? And she was on like level 600 or so, and I showed her my phone. I'm at a level 100, 1100 and something, and she's like, oh, stop talking.
Whoa.
But, I like, in the interest of time, where, she talks here about the results of distractions, where it says, I felt, had it, some kind of way, as you're doing, focus on your emotions. I wanted, whatever you want. So the example she used here, I felt anxious and tired. I wanted less anxiety and more sleep. So what did I do? I ran 3 miles and listened to a fiction podcast. And what happened? Or this happened. I was definitely tired. I took a break from, or I was able to have a break from anxious thoughts. So I like that she has this in her in terms of ways to pull your mind away from what's bothering you.
Well, and she has in here, which in a lot of the chapters, exercises to work through results of your distractions. You write down how you felt, what you wanted, what you choose, what happened, how much is too much. It's a good short chapter to go through, and the thing is really in all these chapters is to work through the exercises. They're easy exercises. They're helpful. You can go back a few months later and see how much. It'll be amazing for the most part how much you have changed or how much you have grown, because that's something that I struggle with, thinking that I haven't done enough or I haven't come far enough. And I have people that remind me all the time that, no, Tam, that's not true.
Exactly. No, you're right. I love that.
So it's really good. So we're not going to do this next week. We're having Kim and Deanna on from Parks and Rec next week for their event, May 14th. So we'll talk about that next week. Don't forget to put the prevention hotline numbers in your phone. We have those all available. There's also, I put on the website some counseling resources, but make sure, there's the counseling, well, those are our things, and then the next one is counseling resources, empath help, NAMI. Remember, there's always hope.